To discuss the conservative campaign against transgender rights, I'm joined by Imara Jones, the founder of Translash Media, the chair of the Transgender Law Center. She's won 5 Emmy Awards, a Peabody Award. Yesterday, she won a GLAAD Award for her podcast, because Imara knows a lot about this. So thank you for being with us, my friend. You have been writing about this for years, and I think I want to understand this and frame this a little differently. This is the flavor du jour of right-wingers in this country who need something to cause people to feel morally panicked about, to get to the polls, to activate. When you go out there and you see these school board meetings and these city council meetings where parents are up there complaining about trans kids, this is not something naturally occurring. Most of these parents didn't have any encounters with trans kids, don't have any clue as to what's going on here. These are talking points that are provided by right-wing organizations.
Well, I wish it was just talking points. I think that we have to understand that there's actually a vast network of people who are deputized by these national organizations and sent money, expertise, resources, as well as talking points. So if it were just them sort of faxing talking points to, willing bigots, then that would be one thing. But I think that we have to understand that, for example, the Alliance Defending Freedom has something called an ambassadors program, where they are essentially looking for individual representatives in school districts across the country to start trouble around trans issues, and then sending them the resources to be able to take those to scale. And that's one of the ways in which Peyton O'Connor, who is among, if not the first trans person on a school board in this country in Asheville, North Carolina, was run off the school board through one of these programs, and others like the Family Research Council, which has, nearly 40 individual state policy councils across the country that are also behind this push. So it's much more than just talking points. It's a vast network of resources, people, and expertise to make it look local when it's actually a national funded campaign by billionaires.
And why? Because when you look back, tell me how this compares to making abortion into a central animating factor when it wasn't. In the early 70s, abortion was not a central matter to either churches or conservatives, but it was turned into one. It became a rallying point. Anti-gay legislation was also not central to people's lives. They didn't care that much about it, and it became central to conservative talking points. Why has this happened now? What is it? Because it's the next available thing to get people worked up about?
I think they believe that it works. I mean, I think that if you look at it from the Christian nationalist perspective, and that's what we have to believe and understand, right? They're not putting hundreds of millions of dollars behind this effort because it's not working or they don't believe that there's a benefit to it. They understand 2 things. One, that as abortion wanes as an issue, it's really apt. I'm not surprised that you would be apt, but it's apt to start there, because as abortion wanes as an issue, they understand that they have to give that entire abortion network something to do. And since it's a network that's already concerned about gender and gender identity and gender roles, transitioning, ironically, into trans issues is an easy way for them to do that. So it keeps that machine and that political energy for a large group of people. The other thing that it does is that they understand that there's lots of soft transphobia in this country. Yep. And that there are a lot of people who are supposedly progressive or liberal who generally say that they're supportive, but when it comes to kids, are squishy. And they understand that. And so they believe that those 2 things together will help them eke out really close elections. And they look at the election of Ron DeSantis and Abbott in Texas and say, you know what, if we center this issue, we can win big.
You were commenting the other day on the implementation of a transgender Bill of Rights at the federal level. Would that make a big difference?
I think so, because here's the thing, we will always be in debate about the mechanics of rights in America, because that's the way that it was set up, sadly. But I think that one of the things that is in question right now is the essential human rights and dignity of trans people. And I think that the most important thing about a Trans Bill of Rights, about an Equality Act, would affirm trans people as human beings and worthy of human dignity in the United States. And right now, that is in no way affirmed anywhere. And it's one of the vulnerabilities that we have that people are exploiting to try to win political office and implement this Christian nationalist fascism.
Imara, thanks as always for your great analysis. Imara Jones is the founder and the CEO of Translash Media, the host of the Translash podcast, and the chair of the Transgender Law Center.